Welcome to Survival Theory. Today we're going to talk about taking the railroad tracks as a bug out option. Now I'm going to be jumping all over the place. I didn't bring a script. I'm just walking the tracks and I'm going to talk about them as a bug out option. So let's get busy. Now one of the most common objections to taking the tracks for a bug out route is perfect place for an ambush. You're dead meat. So, my 2 cents on that is baloney. If you're calling this the perfect place for an ambush, what are your other options? The road? You don't think that's a good ambush point? That's where most people are going to be, on the road. Now you've got right-of-ways, which I'll talk a little bit about, like power lines, gas lines. But they're just as much as an ambush point as this is. But roads are much more of an ambush point than the railroad tracks. And I'll go over a few things about ambushing on the tracks as we talk. And the second thing I hear most often, or read most often, is it's going to be crowded. Well, how crowded are the roads going to be? How crowded are those utility lines going to be? Those gas lines, those right-of-ways, how crowded are they going to be compared to the tracks? And there are certainly advantages to the tracks over some of those right-of-ways, such as gas lines, gas pipelines, and electrical lines. A third thing I hear people say is, well, it's rocky, it's uneven. You know, you got slippery slopes on both sides. It's just hard to walk. It's really hard on your feet and your legs. What are you wearing? Flip-flops? What kind of terrain do you expect? Well, the road is much smoother, but, you know, if you can't walk very well, then the road might be a better option for you. But actually the tracks are very smooth. Very smooth. So, tracks are everywhere. Well, no, they're not. There are a lot of tracks all over the U.S., some areas more than others, but there are vast stretches with no railroads. But it's very easy to find them. You can pull up your smartphone, go to maps, look for a railroad track near you. You can follow that. You can open up your laptop, go to Google Earth. It's very easy to find the tracks, see where they go. You can look at the satellite view, see what buildings are near the tracks, where they go through, maybe where they cross roads. So you can get the layout of the track between you and your bug out location very easily right now while the system is up. And this might be a backup plan, the railroad tracks, and that's fine. But you need to have physical maps of where it branches off, where it goes, the mileage. Because odds are there's a track near you that'll take you close to where you want to go. Walking on the tracks can get very hot. You're walking over rocks, usually crushed granite. There's a lot of flint, iron ores. You've got the steel tracks. There's just a lot of heat radiated back up to you. So it can get very hot. But at the same time, it can help cool you down because you'll get a breeze coming along the tracks, whereas walking through the woods, you may not get a breeze. Now that water on the side may be polluted by oils and other chemicals. So you just need to be mindful of that. Is it stagnant water with a bunch of trash in it? Can you see the oily film on the top? If so, you might want to look somewhere else for water. Sometimes you can wander away from the tracks a little bit and find a bog or a marsh that might have a better source of water. Or even if you cross a river or stream, that's going to be a much better option for water. So let's jump right over to clothing. What kind of clothing do you want to wear if you're going to take the tracks as a bug out option? Well, same clothes you would in a wilderness situation, most likely. because you've got woods on either side of you, you've got greenery, cover. There's the railroad track property line, which extends beyond the tracks, and it's usually green. Ditches of water, trees, bushes, grasses. So you want to be able to get off the tracks and kind of blend in. Also, you need some rugged shoes because of the numerous rocks you're walking over the whole time. You don't want to sprain an ankle or something like that. You want shoes with good traction for walking on the slopes, because often there's a slope where you could slide off if you're not careful. Because I know some of you talk about bugging out, but you've never hardly been out of your mom's basement. You get out here and you're going to get sunburned the first day. You're going to be like a French fry. You're not going to make it. So wear the right clothing. Now it goes without saying, but I'll have to mention it anyway. Protection. In any bug out situation, you're going to need protection for sure. Now what about resources on a railroad track? As far as natural resources, a railroad track is a prime location for sustainability. And here's why. This is an area surrounded by woods, or it may be the only green belt in a more open environment, more fields than woods. There's going to be potential water on one or both sides of the tracks. There's going to be greenery, shrubbery, trees. There's a lot of animals that are attracted to that and hang out in this area. Your small mammals, your large mammals, you've got snakes and frogs and everything you can imagine in these ditches. Valuable food source. You've also got artificial resources, trash and debris, and a lot of it can be useful. Trash from other people bugging out and taking the tracks, and they've dumped something. Maybe their pack got too heavy and they dumped it. Well, there it is for you. Some of those resources may include plastic buckets. Yeah, maybe they're old and kind of fragile, but maybe you can get a lot of water in them, carry it somewhere and get it all sterilized and drink up for the day. Small plastic bottles, aluminum cans, you name it. There's just all kinds of resources out here. There are signs along the tracks for the engineers to know where they are, the miles or whatever. Plus you're crossing roads, which is a great marker. So just like a road, it's easy to track your miles on the railroad tracks. Sometimes you can do it with just where does the track bend. It may go straight for 5, 6, 10 miles or more, and then there's a sharp bend where it changes from north to west. So you'll see that bend, you'll know about how many miles you've gone. Just very easy to track your miles. Plus, you got to have one of these. There may be a point on the tracks where you want to leave the tracks and head out into the woods, and based on your map, let's say you need to start looking for that location 1 mile past where the bridge crosses the river. Well, you got your ranger beads, you're calculating your distance, so you know when to start paying attention to where you need to get off the tracks. I hear something big in the woods over there. Something pretty big. Now, one of the advantages to taking the tracks is I can walk silently on these tracks, not make a sound. So I can hear everything going on around me. So how do you walk on the tracks? The disadvantage to that is you're probably not paying attention. But it is quiet and easy on the feet, that's for sure. Another option, these are equally spaced out. Not to the inch, but close to it. You can walk on each one. That is a very short step. It's also a smooth step. Easy on the feet. Another option that works well is to step on every other one. If you can do that, you gain a lot of distance in a very short time. It's almost like jogging. The fourth option is to walk in the rocks, and I do not recommend that. That is noisy, hard on the feet. You're liable to sprain your ankle, slip down and get injured. So back to the subject of being ambushed on the railroad tracks. Yes, you can get ambushed on the railroad tracks. You can get ambushed anywhere, but I think you're much more likely to get ambushed on a road. So there are ways to prevent or help prevent being ambushed on the railroad tracks. Number one, how are you getting ambushed? If it's not heavily traveled, such as where I am now, there's no one bugging out right now, there's no one in front of me, no one behind me. What are they going to do? Sit there, camped out on the side of the tracks, waiting for somebody? Well, they're not going to hear anyone coming up because you can walk on these tracks very silently. And if I've got a group of 5 or 6 people and we're all armed, one person's ahead of us with, moving silently, scouting the area. A few of us are spaced out, and then there's one person lagging behind. We all have weapons. What are they going to do? We've ambushed them. They haven't ambushed us. Now another point on ambushing. How far down the tracks can you see? I can see pretty far down there. Will they see me before I see them? Probably about equal unless they're not paying attention. But as a prepper, a survivalist, hopefully you're aware of being more aware, keeping your head on a swivel. Maybe you see them first. So that's a plus just because you're being aware. Also, that track is straight a lot longer than we can see. Now, especially on a hot day, that's going to put up a haze. Reflecting that heat, it's going to distort everything. And you can't see that far down the tracks. Also, it could be nighttime. So the visibility is reduced. And if they have a light, you're going to see them a mile away if they're walking down the tracks with a flashlight. Now, hopefully you're in stealth mode if you're walking the tracks at night, because that is when you can get ambushed. So you need infrared, night vision, or just a red light every once in a while, to check your miles or on your map or something like that. Because even in the moonlight. Now again, this is another advantage to the tracks. There's nothing to stumble on here. It's just the railroad ties and the steel tracks. Easy walking even at night. So I'm walking on the tracks, and I think I see something way up ahead there. So the first thing I'm going to do is get off the tracks. Kind of seek the shelter of going downhill off the tracks. So if you're walking the tracks, you need binoculars. And you're going to need those on you at all times so you can see quickly. If you do have to pull them out of your bag or pull something out of your bag, regardless of what it is for whatever reason, put your backpack back on. Don't leave any gear laying around and then wander away. It is a railroad track. Someone else might be using it and come along, and you may not be able to retrieve your items. So you just need to have everything with you, unless you've got a camp set up off the track somewhere. But we're going to take these binoculars and we're going to move up until we can see what's on the tracks. Now using infrared will definitely come in handy day or night. However, if someone is off the tracks, down in the brush, don't count on infrared seeing them because they're going to have a lot of cover. Unless they were right next to you, possibly. So at night, you could potentially walk very quietly using your infrared to scout for people camped out. Maybe they have a fire. So listen, smell smoke. If you smell smoke, maybe someone's camped out. Listen at night. They're likely to make more noise. Maybe they're having a little fun at night. They got a campfire going. They're chit-chatting. So moving at night has its advantages because most people probably won't. And if they do, more than likely, they're going to be using a white light so they can see. At least popping it on every once in a while. And that'll let you see them coming from a mile away. Because you're using red light, infrared, night vision, or just no light at all for the most part. So at the right time of year, not only are there animal sources for food, but there's plant sources, very abundant along the tracks. Sometimes the blackberries and other berries, they love the sunlight at the edge of the woods, and they will get so thick along the tracks. You've also got different flowers you can eat. There's just a lot of resources along the tracks, like I said before. Yeah, there's mammals to eat around here. Look at that. And look at that, there's blackberry growing here, or dewberry. So I've covered a lot of subjects regarding using the tracks as a bug out route. Last thing I'll talk about is gear. Alright, so some of the gear considerations when you're going to take the tracks. Number one, binoculars. The more powerful, the better. These are small, lightweight, pretty powerful. Another is some kind of night vision device. This is infrared. I can see someone from hundreds and hundreds of yards away down the track. Another is the old Write in the Rain notepad and permanent marker. Now that should be in everyone's bug out bag, but on the tracks, I can write on this, put a couple rocks on top, right here on the tracks. If I want someone to find this note, they're going to find it. Easy peasy. Another one, because of all the water around here, or crossing streams, lakes, or rivers, fishing kit, little emergency fishing kit. I could stop and do some fishing in the right place, get some dinner. Another one is this gig right here. This is I'll go ahead and pull it out for you. This is a small, lightweight aluminum gig. I've got it wrapped in leather here. And again, I've got uses for that leather as well. But I can cut a stick, put it through the tip there, jam it up. And I've got a screw right here. I can use my multi-tool, screw that into the stick, get it all secure. Now I've got a gig, because there are frogs, snakes. You may not want to fish, but you may want a gig for fish in some of these big puddles around here, because they're in there. So a gig is pretty useful in an environment such as this for securing food. And another one is, and now I would take this anywhere, anyway, but mosquito net. If you stop for the night anywhere, you're going to need a mosquito net if it's that time of year. Especially with all this water around, the mosquitoes are going to be everywhere. And of course, just like all the time, you need a way to purify, store, collect water. Now because of all the water around here, I can carry something like a life straw, and instead of drinking from my reserve, I could just drop down there, suck some up real quick, and then go about my business. But again, you got to be careful of pollution around these tracks. Oh, and I already mentioned ranger beads. for tracking distance. Of course, you always need a source of light, but I've got this headlamp here, so I can go hands-free and walk on the tracks. But I have the red option. I can turn on the red light. It's not as noticeable. I can see features I need to see, not to trip. I can read a map, etc. I could walk and talk on these tracks all day, but we need to keep this video under 4 hours. So, just wanted to say a thing about the hardcore survivalists and bug out people. Now, I'm not talking smack about those that are serious about it and are very knowledgeable about it. I'm talking about the people that have this mindset where everything is one way. Everything is what they saw in the movies or read in a book, or they saw Mad Max and that's how SHTF is going to be. And they don't have the capacity to open their mind up to options or to understand that situations can vary. They're the ones that say there's only one way to do it, and that is spend all day during the daylight hours, which may be 16 hours, hidden in their stealth shelter, eating granola bars because they can't build a fire. And then when night comes, they're going to crawl on their belly using their night vision. I'd rather walk 3 miles per hour and use my skills and my awareness to get somewhere safely than go to that extreme and cover 2 miles a day. My gosh, what if your bug out location was 30 miles away? I could do that in 2 days on the tracks, being very careful. 3 days, maybe, depending on what the circumstances were. Again, like I said, you got to be open-minded. May not be the way you expect it to be, so you got to be prepared. But if you're just assuming that, you're not going to get anywhere. Your life's going to be miserable. You're going to run out of food and water before you know it, because you're crawling on your belly through the woods in the middle of the night. Probably dying from water moccasin or copperhead or coral snake bites, rattlesnake, whatever. You just have to be realistic. Now, there's nothing wrong with the plan of crawling on your belly at night, at 1 mile per hour or slower. If that's how bad things are, that's what you got to do. So that's the flip side. You have to be prepared to do that as well as move along quickly on the tracks. You have to do whatever it takes. Well, thanks for watching Survival Theory. Be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.